Oh hi, I'm Woodworks. You may remember from such how-to videos as how to restore a metal shelf, various car projects, and many other things. But today I'm here to talk to you about NaNoWriMo. That is National Novel Writing Month, and the challenge is in the month of November, write 50,000 words, which is the equivalent of a 175-page novel. That is a challenge, and this is the 9th year in a row I've completed it. I am a NaNoWriMo winner for 2023. I wrote 50,000 words. It's awesome. Now I'm not going to go back and watch this video, probably 5 years until I go back and watch this video, but at some point I'm going to want to watch this video and recall what I thought about this project, because it's funny. I do October, that is my Halloween costume, do that every year, and then I follow that up with November, NaNoWriMo. And it's funny how similar those projects are. Despite one being physical, one being writing, they're very similar. When I start Halloween, I look at the costume I want to do. I create an outline of all the parts of the costume, my first thoughts on how I think I'm going to make those parts. And with NaNoWriMo, I make an outline of the story. Now I do it a little differently. When I started out, I was writing novels as per the contest, but I just think more in screenplays, so I started writing movie screenplays, and those usually turn out to be about 3 screenplays for NaNoWriMo to get 50,000 words, because the goal is 50,000 words. Doesn't matter how you get there, you just get there. So since I switched over to screenplays, I've done 18 screenplays. I did 3 screenplays this year, 18 total. Now I thought when I first started doing screenplays, my thought was, once I do 10, I feel like I'm going to have a good handle on a screenplay. Maybe I'll pursue it, maybe I'll see what I can do with that. So far I've not pursued anything, because all of these writings I've done are rough drafts. Some of them I think are good, some of them I know are not good. I've never gone back and read anything I've ever written, not even a sentence, never gone back to read anything. Is what it is. And so, like with Halloween costume, with writing, as you get into it, things change, you delete, you augment, you completely change. But it is very similar. So this year for NaNoWriMo, 3 screenplays. The first one was time travel related, and that idea stemmed solely from, I watched Bodies on Netflix, and I did not like the ending. And so I wanted to write a time travel movie that ended my thoughts correctly. Now, I think my concept is good, and usually with all of my stories, just about without fail, I'll have a beginning or an idea, a concept, and I have an ending. I know how I want it to end it, because I need to know where I'm going. Because if I don't know where I'm going, how do I get to the end of the story? I need to have a goal. Now, a lot of times, that ending, it'll always change slightly, because when I come up with a beginning ending, a lot happens in the middle. Characters change, ideas, stories, plot lines, all of it changes. But I like to have a goal. I do like to outline, and to me that's one of the most fun parts of the writing, because I start with an idea, like time travel. I want it to end the right way. I knew how I wanted it to end, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I mentioned Bodies, so I can't talk about my ending without that ending. And so then it's like, all right, well, how do you feel in the middle? And so it's those moments of discovery. It's like, oh, well, if I do this in the beginning, that sets up this at the end. And you start filling it in. And usually my outline, I usually like to get about 50, 60 ideas or scenes, because a screenplay needs to be about 50 or 60 scenes. And so I aim for that. And sometimes I follow the outline very closely, and I'm referring back to it, making sure I'm doing it in order. Sometimes the outline is a very loose guide, and it's just concepts of things I want to include in the screenplay. And so for the first screenplay I wrote, I followed that line very closely, because I really kind of broke that story. Like, how do you do like time travel? It is people going back in time, in our present. Well, how do you sustain in the present? And how do you sustain in the present? So with this, they have knowledge of the world, of stocks, different things. I don't want to go too deep into it, because if I explain too much, you're going to pick holes in it. So I'm trying to keep it broad in general, but that's how they do it. I did rope in, SpaceX and private spaceships, because that gives me an avenue. Like my whole method of time, I kind of like my method of time travel, because again, you can't get too deep into it, because science will poke a hole in it. So with my method of time travel, it's if you just fly up, you need a rocket, fly into space, out of the Earth's atmosphere, and I don't know what it is, maybe it's a wormhole, who knows what it is, but if you just fly up far enough, you kind of go over the edge, and you time travel. It's not very scientific, but again, if I explain it away, you're going to find a way to put a hole in it. So I just keep it very broad. And with SpaceX and private rockets, well, that feeds perfectly into that. How would this person, and it's not SpaceX, I name it something differently, like Space Next, how would this person like know how they handle. Oh, well, they're a time traveler too. So there's this whole network of people, and you don't even know who is or is not a time traveler. And so I relate some of the ideas I had in that. I do think this year that might be my weakest story because I wasn't really sure what to have them do. They're waiting around for signs, or they're watching the news, seeing what did change. Like the whole thing is, are we changing the future? Well, how do you know if you're changing the future? You don't unless you're in the future, but they're not. They're in the present. So like, I try to create that tension, that drama of you just don't know, and how that kind of drives you crazy. And at the same time, they do know. I don't even know what the signs are, what they're looking for. I don't go into that because I don't know what they're looking for. But the whole kind of kicks off. They saw a sign, and they know somebody's coming back, and they know the where because they have this knowledge from the future. Who knows how it all works? But in the story, it works fine. Plenty of movies have done that way. And the end is they kind of reach this point of like, well, are we changing the future now? Like, how do we know? That was a story. That was an idea I had like right before NaNoWriMo kicked off. I didn't have any other ideas. Usually I'll try to keep ideas, list of ideas throughout the year. Didn't really do a good job of that this year. So the second story is an idea from last year. I wanted somebody on a road trip. They just want to like hitchhike across America, across something. In my story that I actually started writing, they hitchhike across the southern U.S. And the idea was they have some kind of terminal illness, and they're going on one great adventure, to test themselves, to test society, to see how society reacts. Like, you always say it's harsh for like, don't hitchhike, someone's going to murder you. That type thing. And then the other side of it is, if you pick up a hitchhiker, how do you know they're not a murderer? So there's that little bit of tension. So that's the story. And my outline was not great. A lot of it was like ideas of what would you include in that. And I think this idea, the screenplay could be good, but I really need to go back and drill down on the characters the protagonist meets. Because I'm kind of drill down on the protagonist, and for 3/4 of the story, I wasn't really sure where he was headed. And like I said just a few minutes ago, I like to have a heading. I like to know where I'm going. And I'm building a story towards that end. This, I didn't have an ending until 3/4 of the way through, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to have him go to Cleveland. I know, right? Cleveland. But then I started building kind of a backstory past that, and I jumped back to the beginning of my story to rewrite that to give us the destination of Cleveland. But I think the side characters, he meets a lot of characters. Like, the whole thing is him hitchhiking. Basically, him hitchhiking, meeting people, helping them, or them, them kind of telling him some things. But I think if you could make those characters like really sharp, really good, like really engrossing, I think it'd be a very good screenplay. And the third one is one I didn't really want to do, but I didn't have any other ideas. Nothing else came to mind, and I've always wanted to do this. But it's zombies, and we have too much zombie stuff. I know that, but The Walking Dead bugs me because despite it being the apocalypse, despite being years, if not a decade into the apocalypse, they drive around in brand new Hyundai SUVs with gas. Like, where are you getting the gas? How is this Hyundai brand new? Like, it should be derelict. So I did a little bit of research. Like, that's one thing I love. Like, I talked about my last screenplay, which was a guy road tripping. I looked at Google Maps. I had Google Maps up, trying to trace a very realistic path. Like, if he went down this road, what restaurant would he encounter? Stuff like that. So that was a little bit fun. And so for my zombie story, I'm not going to tell you where it's at because I want you to know my idea, because I found a great place. I think it would be a great strategic camp for the apocalypse. So I didn't want to be too deep into like the zombies are everywhere. I made this roughly 3 decades into like past the zombie apocalypse. And I didn't want to call them zombies. Like, I'll just call them devils. So I kind of feel like you're out in the sun, like the skin either gets kind of burned and like it's cooked, or the skin has come off the face and the muscles are red. I think muscles are red. Science books always show them as red. It's like this red devil type thing going on. And it's 3 decades into it, so like cars, there's none. I did look into, all right, can you produce fuel? You can produce methanol. Basically, like kind of how you distill alcohol, you distill methanol. That can be fuel. That can fuel like a dirt bike engine. Because I figure, the roads are not maintained. Those things are going to go downhill quickly. A car's just not going to cut it. You need dirt bikes. You need something that's really all-terrain that can go around the path. The tree is down across the road, which there'll be lots of trees down across the road. You need a dirt bike to, jump over it or to go around it. And you need to be nimble. And you don't have much fuel. Like, it's, you can produce methanol, but not a lot. A lot of farming. I looked into farming. How many acres would you need for... I just picked potatoes because this is true. In Minecraft, potatoes are one of the more filling vegetables, fruits. So I'm like, well, maybe Minecraft's on something. I didn't research it. I did look up how many acres you need for potatoes, figure out how many people I have in this camp, how many acres do you need, for the potatoes to feed the entire camp, that type of stuff. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do like 2 warring factions where this guy basically he goes out exploring, whatever. Something happens on his motorcycle, and he can't get back. He's stuck in the wilderness. How does he get back? What does he encounter? I thought about, does he encounter like this warring faction? Are there like two villages or towns or camps close by and they're at war and they enslave him to do whatever? Didn't really want to get into all that. It's really just him against nature, but you have this outside threat of the zombies. And so I like that, because you've seen a lot of these survival movies where somebody's stranded in the wilderness and they have to get back or find safety or survive. I mean, what is it, Hatchet, like the kind of a kid's book, but you know, that kid has to survive in the wild knowing what little he has. So I like that aspect of it, and we like, you know, The Walking Dead focused too much on the zombies, where there's a lot of human drama there that they didn't really get into. So I wanted to focus on the survival aspect. It just happens that you also have to survive with zombies, but they are like a footnote in this larger story of surviving, hard times, all that. And so I got 50K today. Now, just as far as how I kind of structure my writing, I try to write 2,000 words a day, because NaNoWriMo, it's November. There's Thanksgiving. You know, I travel, see family, all that good stuff. So I need to build in a buffer. So I usually try to do 2,000 words a day to get ahead, so that when I don't write on Thanksgiving and those days before and after, you know, it doesn't sink me. So this is the 28th, and I finished on the 28th. I mean, yeah, not that much ahead, but I didn't write during Thanksgiving. The most I was ahead, I got ahead 4,000 words like in the first week, and then just hit a couple days where I was only getting a couple hundred words. Then after that, I got ahead where I was 7,000 words above par. Par is 1,600 words a day, and then didn't write over Thanksgiving, so that, you know, had that buffer. Now I'm done. It's NaNoWriMo. I would recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and I just went back to look to see how much have I written since I did this. This is the 19th in a row I've done it, 11 years total, and that is 5 novels, 18 screenplays, and that is awesome. So NaNoWriMo. It's a project that does not lend itself to video. Can't really show you what I've done, but it is a project that's taken the entire month, so I wanted to talk about it, because that's why I haven't done many other projects.